something that we know in talking to kids is they don't see the world as this is my online life and this is my offline life. It's all one life. So when we say to kids, stranger danger, that's a stranger. The person you just met online, that's a stranger. They don't see that is foreign language to them. You don't want anyone thinking, oh my gosh, my kid did this.
Yeah.
Well, newsflash, a lot of kids are doing this. Not all of them end up being groomed and extorted for it, but the sending of nudes and the flirting with kids online is a normal part of kid behavior today. And if we don't talk about the potential harms, we actually empower the abusers.
Before we begin, I want to let you know that today's conversation touches on online child sex exploitation. While we won't discuss graphic details, the subject matter is inherently difficult, but it's also incredibly important, especially for those of us raising children in an increasingly digital world. 15 years ago, I had the privilege of working with someone who I've continually been inspired by, not only by who she is as a person, but her dedication to her work and how that has become her life's work. Today's guest is Julie Cordua, CEO of Thorn, an organization that builds technology to defend children from online child sex exploitation. Julie is working with tech companies, law enforcement, and survivors to identify and rescue children being exploited online right now, even as we're having this conversation. When Julie and I first worked together on Thorn's brand and launch, I watched her commit to a mission that most people can't even bear to think about. She didn't choose easy work. She chose essential work. And she's been at it ever since, building tools that have helped process millions of reports of child sexual abuse material online. The landscape has changed dramatically since we first worked together. AI has created new threats we couldn't have imagined 15 years ago. The dark web has evolved. Gaming platforms and encrypted messaging have created all sorts of new challenges. And every parent listening is trying to figure out how to keep their children safe in a world where threats are increasingly invisible. Today, we're going to talk about hard things, but we're also going to talk about hope, practical action, and what each of us can do to protect children. Because this isn't just Julie's fight, it's all of ours. Please join me in welcoming Julie Cordua. Julie,
Hi.
Welcome to the Breadwinners pod.
Thank
you
you
so much for being here.
It's so good to see you.
I mean,
been a while.
It's been almost 15 years.
It has.
I gave the audience a bit of a backstory, but we started at the infancy
Yes.
of Thorn.
Yeah.
Literally at the birth of Thorn.
The birth.
We named the company
You
together.
did. Yeah.
We launched the brand.
Yeah.
And it's been your life's work.
It is.
I mean, I'd love for you to take us back 15 years. How did you get into this? How did this carry you through from your career at Red? And how did you find out about Thorn and start the work?
I think when we were talking about the podcast, you said, I want to talk about why you chose this. And
Yeah.
I was thinking about it, and it actually chose me. As you said, my background was in technology. I'd been working at Red for a while, and Red was founded in LA, but moved to New York pretty quickly after we started it. And I was one of their only remote employees. So I ended up actually flying to New York like 2 weeks out of every month, but I had little babies. And I remember I did it for like 3 years. And when I had my second child, she cried a lot, but she would come with me on the airplane. My mom would come and help take care of her. But I would work all day and then be in a hotel room with her all night while she was screaming. And I'd be up, and I remember coming home from one trip thinking, I can't do this anymore. I can't travel and not doing anyone any favors. And so I thought, I actually want to kind of take a step back from the corporate world is what I was doing when I took this job. And a friend of mine, you know how you do when you're looking to switch jobs. I reached out to friends and I said, hey, I'm looking to take a step back. Do you know of anything, maybe smaller? And a friend of mine knew the founders of, at the time, what was this organization, and said, hey, I know some folks who are starting a charity. I think you should interview with them. And I said, I've never worked at a charity in my life. I don't know why would I do that. But they said, I think you could be helpful here. And I interviewed, and I thought, this is really meaningful work. And at the time, it was going to be very small and kind of contained. And I thought, I can be helpful in this mission. Like every skill I've ever learned through my business career can be applied here.
Yeah.
But I thought it was going to be a teeny tiny thing contained.
It is no longer small and contained.
It is no longer small and contained. And to your point about it being my life's work, I mean, once you start in this work and you find out what it is really happening and you realize you can make a difference, I mean, I don't know that I could be doing anything else.
How did you transition into it? This isn't like, to your point, a regular tech job where you start on your first day. I mean, this is hard stuff.
Yeah.
And you had little kids when you first started. What was that transition like? And how did you adapt and keep kind of church and state with your personal life and the work that you're doing?
I didn't know what I was getting myself into, to be honest. At the time, I was joining an organization to work on, at the time it was defined as child sex trafficking. And we were looking at the intersection of technology and child sex trafficking. And I knew a lot about technology and the internet. I did not know much about trafficking. And I had heard through the interview process, right, that children were being bought and sold for sex on escort sites in the United States. And I didn't know what that was, but I knew they were legal. And I thought, well, if I'm going to be effective in this job, I need to understand what it is. And I wouldn't recommend this at home, but I went on to the escort sites and I did you're just like, what is going on?
Yeah. How does this exist?
How does this exist? And it's fully legal. And what I was being asked to do was try to find out of the people on these sites who were children. And so I started looking at the pictures and and that hit, like, you can tell, like, who are kids. And my eyes were open to just like a part of the world that most people don't see. Those first few years where I was like angry and I would sit in meetings, people would say, well, we're talking about child sex trafficking. And I know you gave a health warning at the beginning of this, but I said, no, we're not. We're talking about child rape. And people would be like, you can't say that. I'm like, I can't say that? I'm sorry. Like,
why are we trying to put a facade on this?
And so over the years, I've learned how to be more diplomatic and use the terms that we're supposed to use. But I think maybe that's what's helped me in this is I had a lot of shock and awe of just like disgust and what are we doing as a society if this is what is happening? And so I didn't learn how to balance it very much in the beginning.
Yeah.
But it probably drove me.
Well, there's been a big evolution of Thorn's work. So for those who aren't familiar, maybe take us through Thorn and your mission and how you use technology for good to combat the technology that's bad.
So we focus on, now we've evolved over the last 15 years, how to address child sexual abuse in the digital age. So while we started 15 years ago focusing on specifically technology and trafficking, we've continued to focus on technology, but kind of broadened our lens because the world has changed to looking at how do we use technology to combat all forms of child sexual exploitation. And it starts first with research. We do a ton of research with kids to understand what they're experiencing online. And then we get into how do we look at technical innovation in this space. So when we started, and that's actually, those two things are where we started. We didn't have products until later. It was really, I mean, if you think back to 15 years ago, the iPhone had just come out. Social media was just emerging. When we said we were going to focus on the intersection of technology and child sexual abuse about 2 years into the organization, a lot of people said, is that even a problem? And today would be a different reaction. And so one of the issues we saw was that there was no commercial incentive for the best tech minds in the world to think about solutions for this because there wasn't money to be made. So that was a perfect place for a nonprofit to come in. If you don't have market dynamics, then a nonprofit can come in and say, let's use philanthropic dollars to try out some innovations and see if they'll work. Well, we started just doing research in tech innovation, and we thought as we find solutions, someone in the market will take it and grow it. Some company that's way smarter than us, small little nonprofit, will grow these products and make sure that they protect all kids. And as we started finding innovations that worked, we realized there wasn't anyone to take it. And so we became a product organization. And over the last 10 years, we now build and scale the systems that detect child sexual abuse material across a lot of the open web, a lot of the apps that we use every day, and then a lot of the law enforcement, like 48 countries use our software to help find kids who are being abused online.
So I want to unpack that a little bit because 15 years ago when we were working together, you were building the tech task force. How does that exist today, and what is your relationship like with the big tech companies?
Yeah, it's evolved a lot. Yeah. So kind of pulling on that thread of when we started, like right now you hear a lot about trust and safety teams at tech companies.
Right.
15 years ago, that didn't exist.
Right.
That wasn't a job title. There were no trust and safety teams. There were a smattering of engineers that were being tasked with find this toxic content and get it off our platforms, but don't tell anyone it's there because that would look really bad.
Yeah, it's taboo.
Oh, yeah. So we started something called the Tech Task Force that brought together those engineers who felt actually pretty isolated at their companies into a room behind closed doors and said, let's talk about this. Like, what are the issues? What could we build that could make it better? And that was actually one of the things that helped us realize that they weren't going to build it because it wasn't Facebook's job or Google's job to secure the whole internet. It was their job to make their platform safer, which gave us the idea that there has to be someone whose job it is to help protect kids.
Sure.
And so that task force was together for maybe 5 or 6 years. And it's evolved over time and to where now we actually build software for nearly 100 companies, and those companies we consider our partners in this. And so it's a lot broader. There's a whole discipline around trust and safety, and I would say our community is bigger. And now there's language around it too, right? Is the companies know it's an issue, regulators know it's an issue, parents know it's an issue, and so we just have a much more open public discourse about what's happening.
How has AI changed the landscape of all of this? I mean, in the last 3 years, it's literally at our fingertips where we can have AI write our business plans. But obviously, this is a much deeper issue when it comes to child sex exploitation.
Yeah.
So what is the work that you're doing now with the teams who are building AI and everyone who's using it? What does that look like?
I mean, this world has changed so quickly in even just the 15 years, but if I just look at the last 6.
Yeah.
So I would say 7 years ago, what we were focused on was finding the images and videos of children being abused and taking them down. And so that meant a child had to live near or with an abuser for that to happen. That's one challenge, and it's toxic content, and it's horrible, and it breeds communities online that you don't want to exist.
Right.
And that was our mission. Then we actually had another step where COVID hit and we put every kid and every perpetrator online. And now all of a sudden you didn't have to live near or with an abuser. You could be groomed online. We saw skyrocketing rates of sextortion. And then 2 years later, and this is in a span of 6 years, right? Generative AI is democratized. And now people can take images that are online of someone's likeness, a kid's likeness, and turn them into sexual abuse material. And so where I used to say, it used to be you had to live near with an abuser to be abused. And then it was you need to be online to be abused. I used to say, how do we combat child sexual abuse online? Now, a kid doesn't even have to be online to potentially be a victim of this type of abuse. And so 1, the harms are magnified. 2, we do a couple things to help counterbalance. 1 is we work with all the top AI companies. I mean, many of the bigger players have agreed to how to design their systems so they can't produce child sexual abuse material, which is great.
That's good to know.
It's one of the first steps they took, and these are some of the bigger players. And so working with them to figure out how to do that. And then we actually use AI to help detect this content and take it down.
Right.
So there's, you
AI
said this
for
in the
good
very,
and AI for bad.
I was just going to say, you said in the beginning, technology itself is not good or bad. It's how people use it.
Yeah. What are the tools that were effective 15 years ago that may still be effective today, or has the entire landscape changed?
There's some basic technology that was effective back then. So the way you find this content is if you have seen an image and you know it's abuse, you take a fingerprint of it and then you can go look for it everywhere else. So that's still the foundation of how we find bad stuff. But what that does is it just finds abuse you've already seen.
That exists.
Right. So oftentimes those are kids who've already been recovered and you're just looking to take down their images and make sure they don't recirculate, which is very, very important.
Sure.
But you want to actually find new abuse, and that's where AI comes in. So being able to predict, is this an image or a video of abuse, and signal on that. And that's where a lot of progress has been made in the last 6 years. And we're now finding more and more abuse, and that can lead to recovery of children who are in active abuse today, which all parts of it are important.
Yeah.
But that's very important.
Where's the baton pass from what Thorn does into other programs? To your point about child recovery, and to understand there's a full 360 picture of what is going on behind the scenes. Where does Thorn kind of stop and say, this is where we end our work and here's where other potential organizations come in?
This was also part of me being naive in the beginning. Like when I was so shocked and horrified by everything that was going on, I thought we can just build technology and take it all down and we'll stop it and we'll find the bad guys. And it is an entire global system that is combating this and supporting these kids who are recovered. So our niche where we focus is building and scaling the solutions to find children faster and take down the documentation of the worst days of their lives, we say. And so you can think of us as like internet infrastructure. So the world's law enforcement uses us to help find the children, and the world's tech companies use us to keep their platforms safe or stop abuse.
Right.
And then I would say that area of intersection of technology and abuse is where we specialize. So we also publish a lot of research and insights because what we want is the rest of the ecosystem to understand what's happening.
Right.
So we don't do the investigation. So one of the baton passes is a tech company can use our software, but they have to have a trust and safety team that then reviews the content, adheres to the laws in their jurisdiction of once I find bad content, I have to report it to law enforcement.
Right.
They do all of that.
Okay.
And then for law enforcement, they still have to run an investigation, right? We help them narrow. We find a needle in a haystack, and they have to go get the search warrant, do the due process, arrest the perpetrator, recover the child. Then you have the whole child recovery process. You have the prosecution process, a long tail of care for these kids. And also on the upfront, there are a lot of organizations now doing a lot of great work around advocacy and regulatory movement and policy changes. And that's a bit outside of our scope. But all of those things together are trying to create a safer space.
That's helpful.
For kids.
And I'm asking very detailed questions because I think it's really important for the community to understand the things you don't want to hear, right?
Yeah.
So help explain a little bit more about the dark web versus the open web, because I think it's easy to turn a blind eye to those things.
Yeah.
And for all of us who are raising littles and now you have teenagers, help us understand what all of this is and what is the difference between those two things.
I've had a lot of eye-opening moments in this work. That was another eye-opening moment. It was 2012 and 11 when I was first starting in this work, and I was out meeting law enforcement. And I thought when I would go meet them and just ask, what are your cases like? Help us understand how we can be helpful, that they would share with me maybe some of the cases I'd seen in the news or something.
Yeah.
But there was one federal agency that said, we also want to share something with you confidentially that we're seeing a lot more of and we don't know how to combat. And that was the first time I'd heard of the dark web, which is a fully anonymized part of the internet that most of us don't know about. And so I'd heard about it, and they said, there's these forums on this part of the internet that are 100% dedicated to child sexual abuse. And I was like, wait, what? Why don't you just go take them down?
Right.
If that's what they're doing.
Right.
And they said, well, it's fully anonymized. Like this, I can explain how that was built later. And then in 2015, again, at that time, we hadn't yet built any software. We were still just a lot of research and convening. And I got a phone call from 2 federal agents who asked us to help them on a specific case. And that got really personal really quickly because they shared with us the details of the little girl who's being abused. And they were undercover in these dark web rooms, and they had watched her abuse for almost 5 years at the time. And they said, these are high-tech criminals. Like, we're watching her be abused, and we cannot find her.
Can't find him.
And you're just like, what? Like, I'm picturing Minority Report, that our law enforcement has all the tools they need in the world to do this. And you're having federal agents call this tiny little nonprofit in Los Angeles who has nothing and ask for help. And I'm like, what? What? But that spurred us. Like, that was part of the impetus for us to say, there's got to be better tools for law enforcement. This is ridiculous. Right. I mean, we've got tools to fight all kinds of crime where the victims can go testify before Congress. These children cannot testify before Congress, but someone's got to build this. Right. And so the dark web is still happening today. It is a place that is 100%, well, there's a lot going on in the dark web, but in this crime, where websites can exist that are 100% dedicated to the sexual abuse of children, and you often see the most egregious kinds of abuse there for all of the reasons you would assume. But it doesn't mean it just happens there. Like, we now have the open web where I talked about what COVID did, and you've got children and adults mingling, and we see abuse there as well. Yeah. And so it's not contained.
I'd like to now move into how we can empower parents and the community, because I think most people, including myself listening to this, it is almost paralyzing. Yeah. And my next thought is, how can we help? One, how can I protect my children, and how can we protect the community? What roles can we play? Yeah. So maybe we start with, what does this look like in your home when you're educating your children, when you're allowing your kids to have cell phones? You almost only think about online bullying. I don't want my kids to get bullied. Yeah. This is so much worse than bullying. But it lives in that same world of tech for bad. Help us maybe give a couple points on what parents can do, or things that they can look out for.
I know, I feel bad when I talk. I do feel like I paralyze people.
It's important to not normalize this conversation, but to educate. And that's the whole point of why the Breadwinners exists, is to talk about hard things. Yeah. Right? Yeah. This is not the over-curated social media feeds. This is talking about hard stuff that will make you a better parent. And people deserve to know about this. Yeah.
I actually spoke at a school this morning, so I talked just about this. Of the first thing I suggest, and actually research shows, is to have these open conversations with kids and start them way before they have a device in their hands.
Like, what's way before? Like my daughter's 5.
Does she have access to any internet-enabled device?
She has an iPad.
So starting age-appropriate conversations now. And some people say, well, I don't want to ruin their innocence. Well, one, I don't think you have to ruin their innocence. But 2, someone online is trying to. Sure. So if you're not trying to protect them, the minute you've put them into an internet-enabled space, like, someone is there who is trying to do that for you.
I have a pit in my stomach just thinking about this. Like, just thinking about having the conversation. Right.
Yeah. And I think it's age appropriate, and it can be tied to language that you already have. So a lot of what we want to talk to our kids about is what healthy relationships are. When do you feel safe? What might be, like, language around what's a red flag? You could have red flags in in-person relationships. I mean, you may already be having conversations with your daughter, right? About, in-person safety. Yeah. So what would that look like online? So you don't have to be talking in the detail that I've shared, but just like, hey, when you're in this environment, someone might reach out to talk to you. At this age, it's appropriate that she brings you into that conversation, right? So maybe you just start with like, why don't you share that with me? And we can learn about, online conversations or something. And then use it, what is your private? What's private for you? And why do you want to keep that private? And what is appropriate for someone to ask you for? Like, you wouldn't walk down the street and say to someone, here's my phone number, my address, my last name, and you don't do that.
Right.
So if someone asks for that online, probably out. So it's very trying to draw analogies for kids of what's in line or in person and online safety. Something that we know in talking to kids is they don't see the world as this is my online life and this is my offline life. It's all one life. So when we say to kids, stranger danger, that's a stranger, the person you just met online, that's a stranger, they don't see that is foreign language to them. That is not a stranger to them. That's their friend. And for, like, I think it's 2/3 of kids say they have a good, like, one of their good friends is online only. So for us, we would never think that because that's not how we were raised. We think that's this online world and I have my in real life people.
Yeah, that's right.
Fully blended. And so we kind of have to honor that, but help them figure out how to navigate it. So if there's one thing, it's the conversation and it's starting, oftentimes people say, I want you to come speak at my kid's school. I'm like, what age? High school. I'm like, oh gosh, way too late. Junior high. Well, maybe, but I'd really like this morning I talked at a K through 8 and that's the time because even if you are a no technology, no internet, their friends have technology. They probably have older siblings with technology, or they're watching you every day, or they're watching us use our devices.
Yep.
And so it's just a conversation that needs to be had.
My friend Carly's here, and her daughter. I was just saying, her daughter's 10. I said, "Oh, does Damon have a cell phone yet?" She's like, "Oh, she just got an Apple Watch." So it's like these steps to starting to bring technology into their lives.
Yeah.
But when they start to get into middle school, it's usually when they, get the freedom to have a cell phone.
Yeah.
But what's the middle school conversations? Because I think a lot of parents today really do monitor phones. What do parents need to look out for on the phones? Like what is it? How does it manifest? How does it show up?
Oftentimes there's what seemingly could be healthy that quickly turns into unhealthy. So a lot of friends that you don't know in real life, but again, sometimes those are really their friends. So it's really about a conversation about what is a safe communication and what's not.
Because, just really quick on that, because a lot of them are pretending to be younger people, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how sextortion happens, right? Someone will pretend to be a 14-year-old girl and entice a boy to send a naked image and then threaten them. But that person who's pretending to be a 14-year-old girl is actually a criminal from who knows where. What to look out for is kind of talking about who their friend network is, talking about what they're sharing, talking about what they would do if something made them uncomfortable. So we know that the majority of kids, when something bad happens online, do not talk to someone in real life. They choose to report or block, which doesn't always work. And they usually choose to block versus report, which means that the platform is not getting notified that something bad. You're just personally blocking the person. I will also say that if kids feel like they're doing a middle schooler feels like they're doing something on their device that their parent has told them not to, you probably won't be able to find it.
Yeah.
I think by middle school, having the conversations that help the child navigate the space and know that they can safely ask for help is probably one of the strongest things you can do to keep them safe.
Okay.
If you've given them access and they feel there's a ton of restrictions and they're going to screw up, they'll be too scared to ask for help when something goes wrong.
Okay. And maybe this is, a follow-up we can put on our website is like a one-pager to help them, like, here's how you start the conversation.
Yeah. We have a link on our website where you can actually kind of choose how old your kid is and choose how comfortable you are talking about difficult subjects.
Oh, nice.
And it'll give you kind of some prompts to start that conversation.
Okay. But like, what are some warning signs that parents should be aware of, either based on how their kids are acting, or when they're monitoring their phone, are there things that they should be looking out for?
Yeah, I mean, one warning sign is kind of a behavioral change. Like for a lot of kids or families I've met where the child has been groomed or is being enticed online, they share, that they start to see the kid pull away, isolate further, self-harm. Perpetrators do know where to find vulnerable children. So they will...
How?
I mean, they will look for groups online where you have kids who are talking about being lonely, depressed, having eating disorders, and they will prey on those groups. So you already have a situation where maybe the kids are already struggling. And so it's hard for a parent to know, is this normal?
Right.
Teenage pulling away, or is this a red flag? But it, as much as possible, like just keeping a pulse on, is there a behavior change? And trying to keep the lines of communication open as much as possible. Raising a teenager is hard. So
very hard.
I might have 3. If the open line of communication between you and your child is broken down, figuring out if there's someone else in their life that you feel like could be the trusted person. If they're really close
advice.
to a teacher or another friend or a friend's parents, and kind of raising it so that if there is some concern, maybe someone else can breach that conversation.
What can we do as everyday people to combat this?
I think what we're doing right now is one of the most important things. I sit in a lot of rooms talking about this issue, and it never fails, no matter how small or big the room. When I'm done talking, at least one person comes up to me privately and says, this has happened to my family. This has happened to my kids. But no one knows. Oh. And because we live in a lot of shame, like if it were to happen to your child and they were being groomed and maybe they sent a naked image and that's what led to sextortion, you don't want anyone thinking, oh my gosh, my kid did this. Yeah. Well, newsflash, a lot of kids are doing this. Not all of them end up being groomed and extorted for it, but the sending of nudes and the flirting with kids online is a normal part of kid behavior today. And if we don't talk about the potential harms, we actually empower the abusers. Because then kids are so ashamed, of something that they did when they shouldn't be. There's some other abuser on the other side of the screen. And because as a society, we're saying, well, you did something bad, we don't want to talk about it, then we hide it. We know nothing good is born out of hiding and shame. And so I think as a society, we can have these conversations. The school I was at this morning, a few parents afterwards said, I want to have this conversation with the kids in the room. I was let's do it.
Yeah.
Because what I don't want is parents to go home and get really freaked out and then take all the devices away, right?
Totally.
Like maybe
lock them all away.
Right. And then our kids are going to go hide and do something, right?
Yeah.
Let's just have a conversation. And I also think, I talk about harms a lot. I don't want to ignore that technology can also be very good.
Sure.
And so how do we show up with our kids and be curious about how they want to use technology? How does it enrich their lives? Tell me the good things so that when we are talking about the harms, we're not just the harm, right?
Yeah.
But that you're representing, I'm really actually interested in your life.
Right.
And I'm interested in you.
Right. I'm not trying to catch you do a bad thing.
Right. I'm trying to help you thrive.
Yeah.
And part of helping you thrive is helping make sure you're ready if someone is trying to take advantage of you. And you ask, like, what can we as a society do? It's have these conversations openly. And what I think you're trying to do through this podcast is talk about the hard things.
Yeah.
And not bury our head in the sand.
Normalize it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's okay. I mean, yes, it is sometimes nice to stick your head in the sand and pretend that these things aren't happening. But when it's your own child and you're suddenly facing it, like these families who walk up and say, we have unfortunately experienced this, you don't want to get to that point. And we just need to be armed.
Yeah.
And to your point, technology can be great, but it's the evolution of it is happening so quickly that we also have to evolve ourselves to be prepared. I'm getting into more detail, but I do think this is highly educational and important. So if a family, for unfortunate circumstances, is faced with this with their children, what do they do aside from blocking and deleting and getting rid of everything? Do they call the police? Do they call you? I mean, what do they do?
Yeah. So I would say block. I would not say delete. So there's a couple things. If your child has sent nude images and maybe they're not being extorted or they maybe chose to send them and maybe they kind of got out of hand, there is something that the National Center runs called Take It Down. So that's an actual website. And you can go there, and if you share the images, it's encrypted. They will be fingerprinted, as I said before. Yeah. And then many of the tech platforms will actually look to take those images down.
Oh,
so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, if your kid said, I made a mistake and I did this.
Okay, so don't delete.
Don't delete.
Use the photo to get it
down.
Yeah.
To get it down. Second, if there's a crime happening beyond that, like there is someone grooming them, someone sextorting them, you're going to want those chat logs, and you can report to your local police or to the local FBI office. They are the specialists who focus on these kinds of crimes. Also seek mental health for your child, especially if they've been groomed, right? Like if someone is being groomed, they are under kind of the mental control of someone else. And that is really, really difficult to help them understand because they've also probably never met this person.
Right.
It's literally like text and
they think it's a friend that's their age.
Right.
Yeah.
And they've probably, I mean, sometimes these relationships or grooming go on for months or years, and there's a lot of harm that happens through them, and that needs to be unwound.
Yeah.
And these kids need help.
Yeah, for sure. Beyond us as individuals, you've been to Washington a number of times. What policy changes are you fighting for? What have you won so far, and what do you feel like still needs to happen?
Well, there was an immediate push over the last 2 years, which moved really quickly, which was making sure that our statutes and laws were up to date to make synthetically generated child sexual abuse material illegal.
Great.
So that lawmakers moved pretty quickly to button up any holes on that. So that's a good one. For the tech platforms, something that we would like to see is transparency.
Yeah.
So, and that is just basically asking, like, let's be public about how you design your systems. What child safety measures do you have in place? How are things designed? And also, what tools do you have in place for kids, you know, to protect themselves? Australia is doing a lot in that. They actually have something called an e-safety commissioner who gets to design specifically laws around online safety.
That makes sense. Every country should have that.
Right? Yeah. And she has powers to kind of demand transparency from companies that operate in Australia. So it's really interesting. I think maybe they've issued 1 or 2 reports so far in the last few years. And it's really interesting when you see, you know, what are these companies doing? And I think before we get into a lot of other spaces, just basic transparency would be great. We're seeing it in the EU when it comes to AI. Like they're enacting some laws to require AI companies kind of talk about how their models are trained and things like that. And there's some child safety measures in there. And I think we have a ways to go in the U.S.
You kind of live in 2 worlds for this interview. You are a breadwinner in your own right and a dear friend, but also we have this portion of our podcast called the Expert Series. So obviously the last half hour or so has been about the Expert Series, which is educating our community. But I'd also just love to hear more about you as a mom and an incredible career woman. And so I'd love to just talk a little bit about how you structure your days and where's your safe space? You know, you go into a lot of really heavy work. And so take us into a day in the life. It sounds like you go walking a lot. And what are the moments where you can help unplug from a lot of this?
Again, when you told me this is going to be an area, I was like, oh, shoot. I actually think I need to get advice from, I'm going to listen to all your other podcasts and see what they do, and then I'm going to try to apply some of them. I would say walking is, this is a little tricky because I also work from home. So this has been really tricky because this is a difficult subject.
Yeah.
And I have tried to build a life where I can be present for my children. And so it probably would have been a lot easier for me to work out of an office where I could drive to work, put it there, drive home, and be done. But I've always worked at home. And so it just has been really difficult for me to compartmentalize.
Yeah.
I would say lately it is long walks, just getting out of the house and listening to a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to listen to all the other ones and get some, separation tips.
Do you, maybe it is walking, but do you have a self-care practice that's your non-negotiable? Walking.
Walking. I would say, I mean, this one might be funny, but I think
Korean skincare?
Korean skincare. Yeah, I did have to, yes. I'm a great napper.
Oh, that's a great non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Everybody should have that.
Yes. I think I developed it when I had kids, right?
Yeah.
When you're already exhausted. And I know some people were like, oh, I could never nap when the baby's napped. I always clean the house. I was like, oh, no. I napped.
Napping.
I napped. And now I have teenagers, and I'm like, I still deserve a nap. And
especially if you had a child who was not a great sleeper.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's the kind of two audiences for the breadwinners. One is the women who are moms already, and then there's these hopeful, aspiring breadwinners who are listeners as well, who are these women in their careers who hope to be moms someday, who I found out a lot of them are like, wait, I want in on this community. Like, I want to learn from all of these women. So let's go back to you working at Red and traveling across the country and bringing your baby and being up all night. What would you have done differently, and what is your advice to the young moms, the new moms, and the moms to be for a kid who doesn't sleep and you're working?
Oh, God. Oof. I mean, she didn't sleep longer, I'm not exaggerating, longer than 2 hours for 6 months.
Oh, my God.
Uh-huh. I learned through that experience why sleep deprivation is a form of torture.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. It almost took me, like, that was not healthy.
Oh, wow.
It was not good. I would say the best thing I did was I had great help. So we had a caretaker, a nanny, who all she ever wanted to do was hold babies. And I was like,
Here.
Good morning. I haven't slept all night, but you take and hold this baby, because she would sleep if she was being held, but still not longer than 2 hours. I'm going to go back to bed. And so I just find help. Don't be scared to ask for help.
Yeah.
And don't say no when someone says they can help.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
It's not easy.
No.
It's not for the faint of heart.
And it compounds.
Yeah.
It really, you look back and you're like, I can't believe I lived through it. And it feels like a moment in time, but when you're in it, it feels like eternity.
Yeah.
I remember those days.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So we have a section called Breadwinner Artifacts, where I have you bring in things that represent you as a mom, you as a career woman, you as a beautiful self. And I would love to start with a couple of those things. What did you bring in for artifacts?
Both of mine are work related, actually. Okay. I actually had a third, but in true mom style, I was trying to find it as I'm driving here. I was not looking at my phone as I was driving, but I might have been. So the first one is just how hard I have tried to work with meaning, which I've loved every minute, while also being present for my kids. Yeah. And it's this picture, I guess in the early days, I had a little office near my house, and I put a couch in there and a little play area, because my idea was that the kids would come by after school and kind of hang out. And there's a picture of me and the 3 kids like piled on the couch in my office. And it's still one of my favorites, because it's just, it represents the struggle, but it's a struggle that has been worth it for me. I've coming out the other end, like, we can talk about all the emotions through all the stages of growth, but I've got 3 teenagers now, and coming out the other end, I'm actually really grateful for how I was able to balance it. And actually, I didn't balance it, how I managed it.
Yeah.
And that picture represents a lot.
We talk about how balance is bullshit. And it's really about integration. And it sounds like that picture is the perfect integration. You were trying to figure out how to integrate in a way that worked for you and for your family.
Yeah.
And that looks different for everybody.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, you're so happy you did it. But what were some of the hard parts of working and raising a family?
Yeah.
When you were in it, you were like, this is really hard.
Yeah. I mean, I think when they were really little, I would travel a lot. And when I left and they would cry, oh my God.
That happened to me yesterday.
Right?
Yeah.
You get in that Uber or you get on that plane and you just think, I am the worst mother.
Yeah.
And I'm scarring them for life. And I'm going to regret this,
Yeah.
And I also had another time, I was on the East Coast and I got snowed in and I missed, I actually now can't remember what thing I missed, but I literally crumbled on the airport floor and started crying by myself. I mean, it was such a pathetic.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. I'm just having a moment. But then they, they grew up and now they're teenagers and they couldn't be more proud of what I'm doing. And also, I have 2 girls and a boy. Like, I'm seeing them, chart their own paths and figure out what they want to do and do hard things.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I used to travel a ton before COVID. And I felt so guilty, right? And then we got locked down for probably 2, it was a shorter period, but 2 years I didn't travel.
In California, it felt like 9 years.
Yeah, it was a long time. And I had a first grader and a fourth, 5th, and a middle schooler.
Oh.
And so I was running
you were in the
this
thick of it.
and I was teaching first grade. And it was something.
Wow.
Coming out the other side, I started traveling again, 2 years after COVID. And I got really nervous. And I said to the kids, at that time I had a high schooler and another middle schooler and, maybe a 3rd grader, 4th grader. And I said, hey guys, I'm going to go back to traveling. I know it used to be a lot. And I kind of had this whole conversation. And they kind of just looked at me like, you used to travel? I was like, yeah, don't you remember? I was gone a lot. They're like, no, I don't remember that at all. And I was like, oh my, all the guilt.
Childhood amnesia?
Yeah. All the guilt I had put myself through, they didn't remember. They had assumed, and this was part of why I now look back and say, I feel like maybe I did okay integrating it, because what they remember now is that I have tried really hard to be present. I prioritize, trying to take them to school and be at their events. But I also travel, and there is no balance. I call it spikes. Some weeks, my spike is work. And sorry, team, we're ordering takeout every night. Other weeks, I tell my team at work, don't call me. I'm on vacation with my family, and I'm going to be with my family.
Yeah.
And
I like that. Spikes are good.
So
Awesome. All right. What do we have here?
So this is something from the work side of things. So these are what's called challenge coins. And I was introduced to these very early in our work with law enforcement. So
maybe hold one
yeah.
up. Let's see it.
This one talks about computer forensics, cyber crimes. But when you have done something meaningful with a law enforcement agent, they give this to you as you're kind of part of our community, thank you for your service. And we got one of these 10 years ago when we actually didn't help on that case that we were asked to help on, but out of that case was born software that today has helped recover thousands of children. And these remind me, we build software, but what we really do is we serve, there's these amazing law enforcement agents, and I would even say the trust and safety teams, who every single day see the worst of humanity. I mean, what they have to view and what they have to do it's horrible.
Yeah.
And we build the tools to make it easier and better, and so they don't have to look at abuse content if they don't have to, so that they can find kids faster. I serve them, and that reminds me.
Yeah.
It's an important thing that we've carried through our organization.
That's really nice and very impactful.
the law enforcement who do this work are, I'd say, angels on earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That if I've seen the underbelly of society, they've seen it 100-fold. Yeah.
And they do it every day.
And they do it every day. And they are some of the most dedicated people that you will ever meet. And what is amazing is it is hard to talk about some of the harder things. You know, they walk amongst us, and they probably don't share what they work on. It's not dinner table conversation. Yeah, I do think they're angels.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And do you have one more?
I do have one more. This one is just a funny, I'll hold this up. Funny. Okay. So what I just shared and then this are kind of juxtapositions.
Okay.
So we have a team now of 80-something people.
Wow,
yeah.
80 people.
Yeah. Yeah. Mostly engineers, data scientists, but all kinds of folks who have given their careers to this work. And similar to what I said about law enforcement, right? Like, these are people who probably left corporate America to come do this. And it's hard work. Right. It's exposing your brains to things that most humans shouldn't ever have to process. And there's the seriousness of it. And then there's a captain's hat with a potato and blonde hair that I wore at our annual offsite.
I mean, you have to bring levity to it, right?
Well, that's what it reminds me. So it sits on my desk because our team is, of anywhere I've ever worked, one of the kindest and funniest, and we may win the Slack award for how many custom emojis we have. So this is actually a custom emoji that represents me. And yes, but potato, I hope it doesn't let me give the background on the potato. The potato is a symbol of like you did something good. So we'll give a potato emoji, like potatoes for you. That was great. Then someone made a joke that we should have a potato of Julie steering the
captain.
Potato captain, because we went on a ship for our team offsite. So I put these two things side by side, like they're such a juxtaposition of the seriousness of the work that we do, and the fact that it takes people who can both do serious work and have levity and laugh together to do that work. And so that was one of my other artifacts.
Company culture is obviously important for every company, but for a company like this, I feel like it is probably the most critical piece.
Yeah.
Is obviously expertise, but then culture probably comes a close second.
It is. Like you have to feel, I cry a lot at work. We talk about hard things all the time. We share cases, and to be able to do that with a group of people who are all on Zoom. We're fully remote. And we only get together all as one team once a year. Culture is critical.
Yeah.
Like we have to build a culture of trust and openness and care to be able to do the work.
Well, you've created it because you've exemplified it. I've known you for that long to know that you've started. I mean, I think there was 4 of you?
Yeah, we were tiny.
Yeah.
I mean, you helped give us the name.
I know.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, Thorn didn't actually Thorn didn't exist until
it was DNA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
DNA.
right.
It didn't exist until we worked with you to figure out what would this be named.
Yeah.
And even then we had no idea what would come.
Right. Well, I'm glad I could have been a small part of it to get it kickstarted. All right. So at the end, we do rapid fire questions, which we call Breadwinner bites.
Okay.
Yours are a little bit specific to the topics that we've talked about, but some of them are fun. So I'll pepper in some of the fun ones. What is your superpower as a mission-driven leader in one word when you think about your team and what you're doing?
Empathy.
That feels right. What is the biggest myth about online child exploitation?
That it can't happen to me or my friends.
Right. If you could tell your younger self from 15 years ago one thing, what would it be?
Give yourself grace. I still have to remind myself of that.
Yeah. And then the last part, which is my favorite question, is what was your last text to your husband?
Oh, gosh. Did you call the rodent guy? Because I walked outside yesterday for a little self-care to sit on the back patio, and a mouse ran across our patio, and then he left and went out of town. And all I could think about is,
Did the mouse or your husband?
No, I wish the mouse, but my husband. And so now I'm home with 3 kids and a mouse, and I'm like, where's the rodent guy? So that was the last text to my husband.
I've asked this to so many guests, and honestly, like tears of laughter. One of them was, did you give the kids the parasite medicine? Like rodents, parasite medicine.
Yeah. It was
like, these are conversations of love.
Yes, they are. It just really, I didn't even send it with a heart. It was, I probably didn't even, I was just, did you call the rodent guy? And if you didn't, I will. Like, I will be doing this after my podcast. Yes. Oh, God.
Julie, thank you so much for being here.
Yes.
This is such an important conversation, and it's so good to see you again.
I know. So this is fun. This is really fun. Thank you for having this conversation.
Awesome.
It is an important one.
Where can folks find out more about Thorn?
Thorn.org.
Okay.
And on there, you can learn about the work, but we also have a parent section. So you can go there and have some conversation starters to kind of start the conversation in your house.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.